Hello and welcome to this special series of episodes called 29 Days of Magic. During Black History Month, the month of February, I'll be interviewing a Black woman a day who's from business and entrepreneurship. You name it, I'm going to have a chat with her. The idea for this is to show off the amazingness of Black women throughout various industries. I hope you take a listen, like, share, review, and be inspired by these incredible stories. Take a listen. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Mignell, CEO of the cultural communications agency, D-Flash. Each episode, I bring a different business leader who's doing some game-changing things. And this episode is no different. I'm so excited to have Lidia Bonilla, who is a pleasure strategist. So we're going to be talking about all things pleasure and more. It's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Lidia, how are you?
Hey, I'm well. Alive and well.
Awesome. So the way the podcast always starts, the first question is always the same. So the first question for you, Lidia, what was your first job?
What was my first job? I can't, it's funny. I almost can't remember because I had like a bunch of jobs and I was working like from the age of 14, which was like not legal. I used to, lie on applications. But I want to say my first job was working at Domino's Pizza, like, being the person that actually takes the order over the phone, which was back then over the phone. You had to call it in.
Oh, see the call. Oh, I remember those days. Domino's. I'd like a large pepperoni pizza.
Yep. Yeah. No apps, no internet, call.
And hopefully gets delivered to your house within 30 minutes or less. Mm-hmm, so did you ever actually make any of the pizzas, or you were the intake person?
No, I was the intake person. Yeah, I was the intake person. I don't think I was at that job long enough to get trained on that, because within 2 weeks they found out I was not 14, that I was not 16. So they did the verification. So I was able to get like a couple of checks, and they were like, okay, get out of here, scam artists.
And because what, you were like 13?
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Okay, so we go from, can I take your pizza at Domino's, to now as a pleasure strategist. What was that career journey like?
Wow, my career journey has been like with zigzags and just really like inquiry. It's really all been about I wonder what's behind this door. So I started off in finance. I have a degree in banking and finance from Hofstra University. I worked in banking, doing like trade finance operations for about 4 years, and got burnt out. I was pretty exhausted. And then I just, took some time to travel, and, took up interest like writing and what have you. And then at one point I was like, okay, I'm out of money. I need to do something. And I came across this ad to do like financial investigations. And this was like right at the time where like it was a bit after 9/11 and after the banks got in trouble or a number of banks got in trouble for financing the actual attack. So, investigations and compliance became a big buzzword thing to do. So I went to the interview. I was like, I don't know if I could do this job, but I went to the interview, got the job, and, was amazed that I was making at that point, like 3 times more than I was making before.
Wow.
And doing like doing a lot less work.
The best way it needs to be.
Yeah. And since from there, I just, went from different banks. And so to go back, so my first and only full-time job out of college was at Chase Bank, became JP Morgan Chase. And then after that, I became a consultant. So I pretty much have only had one full-time job. And, I went on to work at a bunch of different financial institutions, both large, small, domestic, international, doing, investigations into money laundering, terrorist financing, and fraud.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah. I
basically,
just, yeah.
you could probably do Trump's taxes and find all kinds of problems. I'm guessing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And he knows exactly why. He knows exactly why it's been so difficult to get his taxes, because he knows that is where the rubber will meet the road.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. So you're doing this consulting, you're making
Mm-hmm.
good money by doing a whole lot less work, which is what we call working smart, not hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
I never was really meant, quote unquote, to be in banking. I remember in college, my writing professor, I took this creative writing course, and he said, you're a great writer. And he asked me what my major was, and I said finance. He said, well, stick with that. He said, look, writers are crazy. We're crazy and we're broke. Stick with finance. And I just kind of stayed with finance. I was curious. I mean, I was good at it. I liked it, but it wasn't really a passion. At the time, I didn't even know what a passion was. No one talks about this, in high school, neither, or in college. Like, oh, pursue what your passion is. No, the thing is, like, get into a good firm. That's
it. And keep it moving. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Keep it moving. Get into a top three, big three, get into, a top tier bank. So that was just the path. But I was always interested in creative things. I took creative writing classes. I took classes in real estate development. I developed some real estate while doing this. And so I always did other things. And then it got to a point where I just really became, how do I say, like, really disillusioned with what I was doing, because my intention, my intention is to discover, where people are hiding illicit funds, and or people are potentially committing bad acts through a bank. However, these people generally generate a lot of fees. Or these organizations generally do, they pay good money. Laundering money is a good business, activity for a bank, because they don't care about fees. And so it became so, like, disheartening to, like, uncover things and then find out that they weren't going to do anything about it.
Right.
And then at one point, I actually did, report a bank that I was working with to the Department of Justice, and became a whistleblower for a little while. And overall, I was just disillusioned. And in the midst of that, I had created the House of Plume, which was also, by, quote unquote, by accident, really just by curiosity. And and for a number of years, I just did finance and House of Plume. And at some point I was just like, okay, I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. Just decided to go full time into entrepreneurship, almost 2 years now.
Wow. That's so incredible. Also, you went to Hofstra. I grew up in Hempstead, so I'm shocked that we never
Yeah.
I took 11 million classes there when I was a kid, and in high school, all the after school and, like, pre-college stuff I did at Hofstra. So I'm sure we bumped into each other.
Probably, yeah.
And I'm sure you've been to Wings and Things at least once or twice.
Right, Wings and Things, and then I lived at the Popeyes on Hempstead Turnpike. Lived at that Popeyes.
That Popeyes? Oh,
that Popeyes.
My God.
They don't know. You don't know nothing about getting 2 pieces of chicken wing, two pieces of chicken, and a biscuit for $2. You don't know nothing about that life. For $2.
Like, are you kidding me? So when I was, like, a senior, I think was I a senior in high school, and I finally was able to drive to high school, like, that was my after school snack. Like every Friday, driving home, my Ford Probe. So
Mhm.
yeah, going to Popeyes on a Friday and getting that 2-piece with the biscuit and fries. Oh, that was the best.
So
That was
good. So good.
life was so simple back
So
then, and it's like, you just go to Popeyes, grab some food,
yeah.
come home, and that was it. Like, there was no other drama you had to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
No.
what made you decide to do House of Plume?
So what had me start that was, really just curiosity. So what happened was that I had a personal organizer who came to my house, and because I had a bunch of clutter, and I found my sex toys, and I was like, oh, okay, so cat's out of the bag. Where do people put these things? And she said, nothing in particular. And I tried to look for something that was elegant and functional, and couldn't find it. And I just put it to the side, really, after a while. I couldn't find anything. And then one day I went into Babeland, and I was walking out, and I was like, by chance, do you have any storage products for sex toys? And they were like, no, person was like, no, but we get that question all the time. And I went, well, I'll just make one. And I had prior to that, had no real interest in product design. It wasn't anything I even really thought about. I was always curious about design, but I just thought, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just make one. Naively, I just thought this stuff was like,
Yeah, just
sort
go
of
ahead.
easy. No, not at all easy. And so after I'd asked, people like, yeah, after I asked people like, where do people put toys, and understand if there was a need for it, I just took the steps to create it. And then, I launched it on Kickstarter and became the first adult brand approved for a Kickstarter campaign,
Wow.
which was important really for other brands after that, because that became actually easier for other brands to do the same on Kickstarter and other platforms. And yeah, and then I just, was in the world of product design and selling products to retail stores online and all of that. And then I got, because community is something that's always been important to me. It's something that I kind of gravitate to naturally anyway. And I'd happened to be at a networking event where the woman was like, there's another woman around here that's involved in sex toys. You should meet her. And we got together. We were like, what, this would be I said, I just expressed frustration around being being a Black woman in this pretty white male dominated field. And she's a white woman and pretty, or represents white as far as the way she looks, whatever. But and we just were like, yeah, let's just create something here for women in New York to get together. And it really just started off as like a networking event, and then it really kind of came into something else. And it's called the Women of Sex Tech. That's a non-for-profit now that's committed to representing women, or women, people that identify as women in the sex tech field, all over the world. So so then after that, after a little bit, it just became like, what, I actually am more interested in talking to people about their sex lives, about what matters to them, what's important in their lives, versus selling my product. And that's how I got into the world of coaching people around pleasure, relationships, and sex.
Wow. And it's funny, like you just fell into it and then made it happen.
Yeah, I'm just a curious person. I'm like, what would happen if if I did this, And the other thing that I'm motivated by is like the not knowing if I don't pursue it. If it keeps me up at night, I got to do it.
That's so true. As like as an entrepreneur, that's the thing that kind of keeps you up at night. Because like if you feel it in your chest, like I gotta do this, then you just gotta do it. Like even if you
I
have
just got
no
to do it because
idea,
otherwise I can't sleep.
can't sleep.
Yeah, it won't
Like
leave me alone. It like, yeah. And I really, I think it's you know, it's a calling, but you know, I really do believe that God puts missions on you, and it you know, that you don't necessarily want it, but you know, it won't leave you alone until you see it through. And a lot of times it's not a, you know, a direct result. It'd be like, oh, and that may lead to something else, that may lead to something else. You just have to listen.
yeah, listening to yourself is oftentimes the hardest part because you're like,
Oh
really? And
yeah.
you're like, yeah, no, you gotta listen to yourself. You really
Yeah, I'd rather
do.
not. I so would rather not. I'm at the time when I, you know, had thought like, okay, I could create this product that'd be cool. And I did research and all that. And I said, you know what? I don't know if I had just like a year before was involved in like a pretty emotionally involved, you know, real estate development project with a partner. You know, we're no, you know, broke up and all that other stuff that happens. And I was like, God, can I take on another baby and like another thing, another, you know, because I knew that if creating something, it's a baby that you have to take care of, and it becomes like, you know, your whole world for a bit. And I was like, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And then I traveled. I went to Spain, I went to London, I went to Paris. And everywhere I went, I looked for this product and I couldn't find it. I said, all right, fine, I'll do it.
You just gotta do it. It's like,
Just
all
gotta
right,
do
gotta
it.
do it. Just gotta do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's interesting. Like, I think, and one of the reasons I was excited to have you on the show, because I don't think we talk about pleasure, especially around for Black women, because we're
Mm-hmm.
always sucking so hard and we have the world on our
Mm-hmm.
shoulders and then another stratosphere on top of
Yes.
our shoulders. So, like,
Yes.
what would be some advice that you would give for women, especially for Black women, right at this moment? Because, like, we're a year into COVID, it has been crazy as can be. How do you put yourself first in this side of the universe?
How do you put yourself first? It's really a declaration. You know, it's a declaration before it actually becomes truth. So it's like you have to say, I am worthy, and then take actions consistent with being worthy, regardless if you think you are or not, until you kind of get, you know, the hang of it. And then, you know, it all depends also on, you know, what your life looks like. So, you know, for me, you know, pleasure, you know, being a woman, single, you know, in New York, um, whatever. Even though I'm still pretty type A, like, you know, just one of the reasons why I kind of discovered and studied pleasure for myself as a way to kind of combat, you know, like how hard I could be on myself. But I still have to say is that I was still single, and you know, I had a plant, you know, that I really took good care of. Um, and so in that perspective, I could probably say in comparison to some other women, pleasure for me um, was fairly easier. Um, but then, you know, I got totally, you know, my father became ill, you know, with stuff, not going to a diagnosis, but became, you know, become ill. And now I'm totally in the world of caregiving. And I'm like, wow, you know, and I've had to relearn how to, you know, make myself a priority. And so for me, what it looks like is, you know, doing things for myself first thing in the morning before I get involved in anything else, because, you know, then the day just goes, because he's been hospitalized for like 2 weeks, and, you know, he's in the hospital in Dominican Republic, which is like, you know, I'm part nurse, I'm part lab assistant, I'm part, you know, all these things that like you don't
Right,
have
you're
to
a
do
little bit
in
of
the
everything.
States. I'm a little bit of everything. And I was like, oh, wow. And then at first I was really frustrated, like, and angry and resentful about it. And I said, no, accept what this is. And then I was able to bring joy to it. And then, you know, just go like, this is my time. From this time to this time, I don't care who calls me. I'm not picking up the phone. I'm, either meditating or doing writing or, whatever it is. But I think it just really starts with the declaration and the commitment to make it a priority. And you won't believe that you deserve it. So you're not if you think you're going to like take on pleasure when you deserve it, when you feel like you deserve it, you won't ever do it.
That's so important. It's like, like, oh, well, I have to put this like in this little tiny box and that's just for me. It's like, well, no, actually, you have got to do this because you actually deserve it. I think sometimes folks, we have a zillion and one different responsibilities. And as a result of that, you're right. We just don't think we're worthy of it. And we have to sort of break those cycles.
Yes. Right. And then there's something I discovered recently was that it's a total illusion, a complete illusion, a palm tree in the middle of the desert, that if you just put everybody else first, that you will actually you'll get better results. That is not accurate. Not true. You will be tired, resentful, nasty, and you will bring everybody else down with you. So it's imperative you take good care. It's imperative.
You absolutely do. And at this point, it's like, okay, like, well, what do I do? And it's like, I can't travel, I can't go where I want to do. So like, and so meditating and sort of journaling. Any other good tips you think are good? Because you define pleasure how you define pleasure is obviously the key here. And do you think, like, what do you think has been a common misperception? I think sometimes when people think, oh, what's pleasure? Well, let's go buy a vibrator. And it's like, that's not it. What are some sort of better tools to sort of understand how to get proper pleasure for yourself?
Yeah. So pleasure, is really is not just sexual. So this one thing that I teach is that it's not just sexual. It's really the space of feeling good overall, of satisfaction, bringing joy to something, or having the experience of joy. And that could be in anything. You can have, pleasure from brushing your teeth. It's really about, how you choose to experience life overall, and not about compartmentalizing it so that it's just with sex, or is it something you can just get with a partner, or is it something you can just get like this, or like that, because it could become, it could go into different directions. Like it could become addictive. Pleasure can be addictive, which is not really pleasure. Now it goes into something else. But it's important to know that it's about your whole life. You can bring pleasure. You can just say, okay, I'm going to do, let's say, for example, taking a bath, which feels great and all. But if you're really procrastinating, or if you're doing that to avoid something, or to like avoid a difficult conversation or whatever that is, then that's abusing pleasure. That's coping.
I think that's huge. I think it's like, are you using it just for coping versus using because you want to, are so important. Because especially now in COVID, where everyone's just like, oh, and we're also a year into COVID, and I feel like everyone, especially this past week, has just hit a wall where like they're just like, I'm checking out. I need to like figure out ways to sort of put myself first because everything has gone kind of haywire for me at this particular point. So what's your advice for folks as we're now a year into COVID and making sure that they find time to have pleasure for themselves?
how to prioritize it. So a couple of different things. So number one is to just, make sure just to pursue it, regardless if you feel like you deserve it or not. That's number one. Number two, being clear on what actually brings you pleasure, and what is it that you really want to experience. I know that there's a number of things that we cannot do, and we have to do things differently. But that also allows for some creativity. And so, okay, just because you can't get on a plane and go somewhere doesn't mean that you can't experience something. And one thing that I've seen in this, in the pandemic, is that a lot of what we were doing as pleasure was escapism.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you just really do have to sit with yourself, and do you like what you feel? Do you like what you see? And that may be the impetus for people to just want to go do something, go jump on a plane, go to an event, go, especially if you live in a metropolitan area. There's so many things that you could be busy with that don't necessarily, forward your life. So the other thing I'd say is that it will require you to make changes, in life. And so it's not something that's just going to drop out of the sky. Like if you have, for example, you're married and you have 3 children and you have a career and all these things that, okay, yeah, you can't just schedule something and expect it to just happen. So that means having, conversations with your support system. And if you don't have a support system, that means identifying your support system. And that's one of the things that I find that's missing for a lot of women is, they don't do what they want to do because they think they have to do it alone. And it's also the reason why I actually it's the focus of my practice, which is I call these women the strong ones, which is highly effective, high performing, but have limiting beliefs around pleasure and feeling like they need to do it all. And I was really inspired by that, by the pandemic, by reading the accounts of so many people who died alone. And I thought, wow, if they would have just asked for help, would the outcome have been different? So I would say that it's just to look at your support system. It's not going to happen out of the sky. You are going to have to perhaps have some conversations with people about, maybe there's some things that don't longer want to do that you're doing, or there's some perhaps you are overextended in other areas that it, why it doesn't allow for you to take the time that you want. And then dealing with the different emotions that comes with making these choices. Definitely women who take on a lot, they don't just do it because they like it. It's generally because of some trauma that they've experienced, like that said, you got to do it. If you don't do it, nobody else does it. It's just kind of the mantra of a Black woman.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And great advice that I might be taking personally. So, and thinking about all the stuff that you've done, what do you think you'd tell 25-year-old Lidia?
Oh, what would I tell 25-year-old Lidia? Girl, leave that job. Leave. You don't want to be there. Go and do something different. Take as many risks as you want, because you have the abs for it. You can do whatever. Like I was told with girls who are like, not girls, but young women who are like in their early 20s, and I said, look, do whatever it is that you want to do. Just do it. Do whatever, because the abs you have now, you're not going to have at 40. You're just not. So wear all the cutoff tops right now and do it all. Just do it all. Just do it all. And there's very few things in life that you can get past, by just taking a different action. So just do everything. Just don't commit a felony, because that's hard to get rid of. Don't hang around with people that commit felonies, because you might end up committing one. And don't get pregnant before you want to. Otherwise, just do everything.
I adore you. Great advice.
Yeah, you can really recover from all that. You can really recover from all of it,
I mean, you can. I mean, it's just funny because like I just appreciate the fact that I so appreciate your honesty, because in like, oh God, 200 episodes of this podcast, I usually get the response of like, well, just go for it, and like, take that job and blah blah blah. I usually kind of think that people will say, and I really love the fact that like, let's don't commit a felony, do it all. Let's don't.
Don't commit a felony. It's just too hard to get that stuff off your record. But otherwise, just do everything else.
I don't see why not. I see nothing wrong with this at all. I think this is fantastic advice.
I've given that advice to kids of my, friends, and then their mothers are like, Lydia. I'm like, well, look, she's gonna do it, so you might as well just
don't commit a felony. And we know you're gonna do it. Just don't commit a felony. Again, I see nothing wrong with this.
Yeah.
And thinking about, okay, so you're a pleasure strategist, which means you have clients who you have to coach on this. So what do you do for your self-care?
Ooh, what do I do for my self-care? So I do a lot of writing. I do meditation. What else? Masturbation is a great self-care. I spend a good amount of time. I try to spend a good amount of time alone doing something, because that really does, recharge me. So going for walks, now that I'm in the Dominican Republic, like going to the beach when I can. But reading really, really great books that I can kind of just escape into is great self-care. But I think the biggest, honestly, the biggest contribution you can, as far as self-care is concerned, is just being honest and saying no when something doesn't work. Because when I say yes to something that I really want to say no to, I end up, it gives me I stay with that energy, and it becomes difficult to shake off. But yeah, just, boundaries, I think, is the healthiest form of self-care.
That's a great one, because I think especially now, we get so hard up on everything when we're supposed to be doing everything, because like we're in the middle of a pandemic. Oh my God, yada 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 yada. And it's like, actually, I'm just gonna check out and say no. And so I have learned those letters and put that into a word called no. And so and just not overextending myself, because I think, I used to be not here because I'm always traveling, and now I'm here. So everyone emails me and like, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And I'm just like, no. And like, why not? I'm like, I just don't have time. But I see your calendar. I don't care. I don't have time. Like, and it's been so freeing. It's been difficult, but I hadn't put in the framing of self-care. I just was like, I just need to sleep. So I have to say no. But you're right. It is like the best form of self-care to be like, no, not doing it.
Yeah, because when you say no, you're really saying yes to something else. And that thing you're saying yes to, you may not want.
Exactly. Or it doesn't serve you, or it doesn't serve this version of you. Because I think obviously we've all changed in a lot of different ways over the past year. It's expedited some changes for some people. It's brought new changes to the surface for some folks who had never thought about it. But as a result of that, you're a different you than you were, a year ago this time. And as a result of that, you've got to make sure you're putting yourself first in ways that put your full self first. Not like that's because like you read that in a book and it's like namaste, but like it's like this is for you. You got to do this. That's so
Right.
very
Yeah.
true.
And it lives in your life. You know, you said you could read it in a book, but it really, it really lives in your life. Like it brings, yeah. Yeah. And it reminds me of this. I was in a clubhouse room where this guy was talking about, he has, I believe, 2 kids and married and, is working from home. And he really was talking about the pressure he was feeling to make sure that he performs because he's like, I don't want my company to think I'm slacking because I have kids at home and I'm homeschooling and all that. And I could just hear such, the anxiety and, like always watching his back to make sure that he's like, bringing 150%. So he's, so he's not, feeling guilty for, or made to look guilty for taking care of himself, or saying, so he's like always available and all these things. And so that's, I think, another side of the pandemic that people feel like, oh, well, you're home. So why not, and it's terrible to live that way.
Yeah, just say no. Just literally say no. It's not commercials from the 90s. Just say no.
Yeah.
And don't apologize for it. And don't think that like you or do a no but. It's just like this is a no for me on this. And that's all we're gonna do. And last question for you, my friend. Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Yes. My ask for the audience is to practice saying no for a whole 5 days and see how your life transforms.
Any particular no's or just when it feels right?
When it feels right, whatever it is. Whatever it is.
I love this.
And just, listen to how it feels and what comes up before you say no, like notice the conversation in your head about what's happening before you say no.
Awesome. I love that one. That's a fantastic one. I think I'm going to join in on this challenge. Well, Lidia, it's been so good to have you on the show. With lots of really, really important insights about like saying yes to yourself and really doing self-care. And I thank you so much for joining me and being part of 29 Days of Magic.
Good. Let me know what happens.
Awesome. We'll put the details in the show notes for folks to follow you on all the social medias, and know that you're available for coaching and all that good stuff too. So thank you so much, and that is our show. We're so excited to have Soho Works as the sponsor for the 29 Days of Magic campaign. They're designed by Soho House, and their workspaces to help creative thinkers, businesses small and large, connect, collaborate, and grow. And it's where I'm recording all the episodes of 29 Days of Magic. It's a safe, wonderful, and collaborative experience. I'm currently in the Brooklyn location, but they have locations, one else in New York City, in the Meatpacking District, one in LA, 5 in the UK, and they give you that kind of home away from home feeling with all the tools, technology, equipment to help you do your best work. Like I said, it's an amazing location, feels safe. I've been able to meet some really awesome people, which you haven't been able to do a lot because of the fact of COVID. So it's been a wonderful experience being able to record here and help build community. So if you want to find out more information about it, please go to sohoworks.com to get more information and tell them I sent you. And now back to the show.